Welcome to Episode 6 of Little White Books, the unofficial, untold story of the Mr. Men, and with the fourth wave, the Little Miss.
Miss Bossy, Miss Naughty, Miss Neat, Miss Sunshine, Miss Tiny, Miss Trouble, Miss Helpful, Miss Magic, Miss Shy, Miss Splendid, Miss Greedy, Miss Scatterbrain, Miss Late.
And to start us off, here is Miss Neat.
We were the fourth wave, the female Mr. Men. There wasn't any big welcome for us, just confusion, blank looks and awkward silences. Some of the males, if you can call them that, didn't even know what gender was. They hadn't even noticed the differences among the humans.
Female, not male. Muddle male. Very confused.
Others just kept pointing at the book, saying, "It says Little Miss. That's what you are." As if that settled it.
It is written.
But Miss Bossy? Oh, she was having none of it. She set them straight, loud and clear.
I demand you make it perfectly clear to your listeners that we should not be referred to as Little Miss.
We're female Mr. Men, the fourth wave. She said what needed to be said, and, well, they listened.
I don't care about those idiots trying to reclaim the phrase as part of their identity. We are female Mr. Men. Mr. Men is not a gender-specific term. End of.
The book titles were meant to be a play on words because they were called Little White Books. But with Miss Tiny being little, that just muddied the waters even more.
There's nothing wrong with being little. I'm just glad I'm bigger than Mr. Small.
I am not little anything. It's a sort of terminology a male would use to demean us. Think about it this way. When you see a goat, you don't start fussing about whether it's a billy or a nanny goat. It's just a goat. You've got no business lifting its tail to check.
It felt like some of us were created to be companions for the male Mr. Men. Mr. Small got Miss Tiny, though she ended up in that strange love triangle with Mr. Quiet and Mr. Jelly.
I wouldn't have called it a love triangle. Thanks. Would you, Mr. Jelly?
Well, it wasn't equal on all three sides.
I have boundaries.
Most importantly, Mr. Happy got Miss Sunshine, and honestly, that was the best thing that could have happened at the time.
This is Mr. Tickle.
He started coming out to parties again. He became less obsessive. He laughed again. When they both laughed together, it was genuinely the most beautiful sound in the whole world.
He probably ran all the way from Happyland just to be the first one to meet us. It was so obvious. We were left asking ourselves, are all these Mr. Men really this stupid?
Miss Bossy, tell me about your earliest memories.
When I first arrived, Happy was there immediately, grinning like an idiot. I kept my distance. The first real conversation I remember was with Nosy. He tried his usual tricks to dig for information, asking me name, where I lived, all the rest. I shut him up right away. Not rude, just direct. Get out of my way!
Who's a bossy boots? Miss Bossy, the wizard will undo you. Stop being bossy, Miss Bossy. The wizard will undo us too.
Quite soon after I arrived, I was cursed by this wizard. Thought he was being funny, giving me bossy boots. I went to them, the male Mr. Men, first wave, and I demanded answers. What exactly is going on here? Only Impossible made sense of it. He explained that the wizards had tried to destroy us, that my curse was meant to stop me from being bossy, so I wouldn't exist.
This is Mr. Mean.
Mr. Impossible had started keeping a diary, scrawled notes of sightings, charting patterns, chasing shadows. The goal, find its nest, its lair, Box it in, corner it. Maybe, just maybe, hunt it down. I was all in.
He was a misogynistic creep, but at least he took action.
Mr. Impossible, how do you do? Bending the rules like only you do. Walking on ceilings, defying the sky. A wink and a laugh as the world passes by.
With the fourth wave also came a new land shift. This is a recording from Mr. Topsy-Turvy's memoirs.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting any of these new female little Mr. Men. All sounds frightfully radical, doesn't it? Actually, and between you and me, a marked improvement on that ghastly third wave. Mr. Clever, that pompous, twitchy fellow, insists on calling the land shift a rationalization. I caught him skulking about last night, absolutely riddled with paranoia over Mr. Dizzy. I don't even think he's noticed his new motorway. Maybe he doesn't care. He doesn't seem to mind he's got more humans now. If they'd come here, I'd have pushed them all into the hedge maze. Dear me. Sandwiches. Oh, that puts me in mind. I'm popping over to Nonsense Land this evening. It's been rationalized as well, would you believe? A massive chunk of Dillydale's turned entirely blue and now falls under his umbrella. I do wonder what effect that'll have on those humans. Will they become nonsensical, do you think? Or far more likely, will they try to rationalize him? Ha! Best of luck with that, I say. Anyway, can't go without gloves. Where are the wretched things? I had them just the other... Oh, dash it, I'll take the spares. They squeak when I walk, but one must endure. Onions!
The so-called rationalisation land shift laid down straight roads between lands with brand new road signs and traffic lights. For those with a car, it made getting around easier than ever, but it also changed things for the residents of Dillydale. This is Mr. Lazy.
There was a land shift, so I had to move closer to Happy Land to avoid the furious humans.
Mr. Quiet and Mr. Jelly.
I was visiting Mr. Jelly, who lives in the forest. It's quiet there, really peaceful. Not like Loudland, where I come from. We were playing Connect 4, and then we started laughing. Not just chuckling, proper belly-aching laughter. It was awful, and it hurt. We couldn't stop, and there's nothing funny about Connect 4. About 20 minutes after we'd cleared up, a bunch of humans came along. They weren't laughing. Being in the middle of nowhere, I realised they could have done anything, and no one would have known.
There was a new road and then Mr. Funny drove past and saw us. We thought he'd come to rescue us, but he just waved. Then he made a really horrible noise, like that worst kind of laugh I've ever heard, and all the people ran away.
They say you're not supposed to call it a can of worms, but that's what it felt like the moment I started asking around about Mr. Funny. First up, Mr. Greedy.
Here's a story. Once, Mr. Mischief tied Muddle to a chair. It might have been superglue. Mr. Funny found him, and instead of helping him get free, he spent hours standing there, telling him his most awful jokes, one after the other.
Stop, please. No more.
Here's another, Mr. Muddle.
Muddle begged and begged and begged for his freedom, but Funny just kept going without mercy.
I don't like Mr. Silly. He was very Mr. Mean to me. No. I mean, I don't like Mr. Funny. Silly is nice. Mr. Silly isn't mean, but he is funny.
Everybody hates Mr. Funny. No one at all laughs at his jokes. If Mr. Funny comes your way, be sure to laugh in his face.
Don't worry if you're starting to lose track at this point on who's who. With over 50 Mr. Men now in existence, many of them had something to say about Mr. Funny.
He's just nasty. I avoid him as much as possible.
A joke gone wrong.
I never like him.
I want justice.
Heinous.
Like cold turkey.
Disgusting.
Quite upsetting, really.
I am with deep regret.
Not funny.
Was he third wave? No. That was Mr. Nonsense. He's very nice.
Miss Wise herself. Very wise.
He should have been second wave. And funny should have been third.
This is Mr. Silly.
He ate daisy sandwiches, which I like, and his house is a teapot, which I think is inspired, but he isn't funny at all. He's the Mr. Men equivalent of cheap joke shop tat. Real humour isn't about throwing jokes around like confetti. It's about connection. You have to actually care about the person laughing, not just hope they're distracted enough to chuckle.
I was unlucky enough to be his nearest neighbour, downstream from him, right on the edge of big town where I live. I would get calls from the other Mr. Men thinking I should sort out all these Mr. Funny problems. I told them straight, it's not my responsibility. If he were on my land, I'd have written my own laws of trespass and I'd him locked up years ago.
There's funny ha-ha and funny weird. He's the latter. Mr. Funny is completely impenetrable. Everything is a performance, and anyone he talks to becomes his audience.
Can we just spend the rest of this episode recounting all the times Funny has been really unfunny? Have you interviewed him?
Well, as a matter of fact, I did try.
What do you call a podcast about the Mr. Men? Niche.
Do you remember Mr. Tickle's little white book, and how everyone laughed when he tickled them as they passed? With Mr. Funny, you don't need to be tickled. You just get hit with this awful wave of laughter that overtakes you. It could be some gas he emits, but he's just awful. The worst of the worst.
This is Mr. Grumpy.
What's really awful about Mr. Funny is he brings out the worst in people. I remember him climbing a tree to make some kind of joke, and we were all just trying to ignore him, hoping he'd go away. He was pretty high up at the time when a branch gave way under him. If anyone else had fallen like that, I'd have stayed with them all day to make sure they were okay. But we all just laughed. It was awful. He limped away, clearly hurt, but we clapped. And I thought, great, he finally did something funny. Later I realised how nasty it was of me to think that.
Of all the tales told from that period in the Mr. Men's history, none were worse than the story of Miss Shy.
It was April 1st, my first year. I'd never laughed before. I think you need to be fairly relaxed to laugh, but I never am. Just before lunchtime, April Fool's Day was the day when everyone laughed. Only for a few seconds. I wanted more. This was the kind of thing that Mr. Funny did to people. When we met, he seemed like an exotic wild animal. His eyes were just black. No emotion. And yet there's a constant laughter. A mania. Some people keep deadly snakes as pets, don't they? They have to drain its fangs of all the venom before they can give it a cuddle. That was me. When Miss Naughty started selling the laughing gas, I was her best customer. But it wasn't the real thing. Mr. Funny was. If you didn't laugh at one of his jokes, he would never get offended or upset. He'd just keep going. He honestly didn't care. But I did laugh. More and more. I felt more relaxed. More confident. At first, I was always the one going to him. But then something changed. He'd pull up outside my house. He'd turn up with an idea to make me laugh.
Funny time!
I think he got used to me being there. With him. And he started talking more. Just a crack in the facade. In between jokes. Between the lines. He said, Mr. Worry's book made me worry about worrying.
But don't worry about it.
And then more quietly, the wizard might be able to help you too. Then it would be straight into a knock-knock joke. I just learnt to navigate them, to acknowledge the jokes but not engage with them. And he would often say, you can laugh now. I know you want to. Don't be shy.
Spend some time with Mr. Funny. Get to know him, get to laugh. Spend some time with Mr. Funny. Get to know him, get to laugh.
Mr. Funny is funny.
He took me to the wizard to help stop me being shy. The wizard told us to go on holiday. We went to Seatown, had a long walk all along those beautiful cliffs. Mr. Funny was holding my hand. He wasn't talking. No jokes. He was looking at me. I looked into his eyes and I thought I saw the real him in there. I felt safe. And I was happy. I told him, "I love you." He blinked, then laughed. I laughed too. But then he pushed me off the cliff.
That'll teach you a lesson!
Down and down I fell. Right down to the bottom where my body was plunged into the cold sea before being slung against the rocks like a pebble. I could hear him laughing. I thought he'd find a way down to help me.
Say goodbye, little Miss Shy.
He just drove away. I couldn't move because I think my bones were broken. I was in pain, but that was nothing compared to the agony of knowing what he'd done. It was my fault. I'd been such a fool. I was stuck there on a rock as I watched the sun go down. I was getting cold. Then there was a bright light.
Over here. I can see her.
And I could hear a little rowing boat. It was Miss Sunshine and Mr. Happy. Mr. Tickle too. Without leaving the boat, he was able to reach across and carefully lift me on board. As they rowed back to the shore, I told them everything that had happened. They just listened, and I told them the story. They laughed at the jokes, and I'm sure they shed a tear when I got to the end. We got a taxi to the hotel, and Mr. Bump was there with his bandages. That helped. He stayed with me, kept me safe. Funny had never hugged me at all. In the morning, Mr. Impossible was also there when we had breakfast. I wanted to tell him my story too, but he said there was no need. He knew enough. He told me, in no uncertain terms, that the experience, both falling in love and falling from the cliff, had given me confidence. No, the word he used was resilience. It meant I wasn't shy anymore. I couldn't go back to being shy now because my resolve had hardened. I could see they were panicking, like I only had a few days to live. I had to promise not to talk, at all, for at least a week. Mr. Bump bandaged up my mouth, and I was taken back home and the door was locked so I couldn't get out. Just in case. If I ever wanted to see him punished, I knew I couldn't do it alone.
Mr. Man, what you gonna fight for? Mr. Man, it's time to start a war.
Moving on now, I spoke to Mr. Greedy and he told me about how the wizard was eventually brought to justice.
I'd opened the bistro by then, so I was on a massive charm offensive to win more customers. I'd also realised my calling. It wasn't about eating, it was about sharing a meal.
Mr. Quiet.
Then Mr. Greedy offered to take me out, but I told him I just wanted to stay home. I cooked him a bit of risotto, and then he noticed my magic cupboard.
This discovery was massive. A dream come true. Do you know what I mean? Whatever food you could wish for, you could have instantly. Goodness gracious me. Unbelievable. At last, I was able to win people back by giving them food rather than just eating theirs.
And Mr. Strong.
Me egg problems were finally solved. It really helped me get back on my feet, like a high-protein worm beer detox.
All you need to do is you have to say out loud what you want to eat, then you knock 3 times, and then the food is there.
I told everyone and they all came round. Big queue outside Quiet's house. We all had a go and ate so well. Absolute dream.
I asked for something you just can't get down here. Octopus ice cream.
I asked for lobster, not something I'd normally pay good money on.
I asked for a rubber chicken.
I asked for a Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum. All I got was an iced lolly.
Magic cupboard overflowing, in their bistro business growing. Every dish a special treat from 2 friends who love to eat. Mr. Greedy and Mr. Skinny
unlikely pair, pink and yellow, they've eaten everywhere.
Take a guess who came along to spoil the fun?
You shouldn't be using magic like this. It's too much.
Mr. Mean.
Mr. Impossible was there, standing in the shadows, watching, breathing in the filthy wizard's stink of piety. But something about this moment, perhaps bearing witness to Mr. Greedy, devouring an endless slew of food into his greasy fat mouth. The spectacle of it, it lit a spark in Impossible's restless mind. A trapdoor idea. A grim little piece of theatre where I'd be the one on the end of the fishhook, wriggling, helpless like one of Mr. Strong's fat, juicy worms.
Well, Mean was still under an undoing spell, so if he was mean to others, then his arms and his legs would turn into fruit and vegetables. His fingers turned into bananas. So, Impossible and me went round to his house, a few days later, and explained we needed his help to catch the wizard, to teach him a lesson. Mean consented, so we began by asking him for some of his money. Outraged by the suggestion, in his typically verbose way, he refused, and bosh, his nose turned into a carrot. So I ate it right off his face, and then I ate one of his ears.
I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I screamed, thought for sure I'd lose an ear when they turned back, but something shifted, like a snake shedding its skin. I felt renewed. Then they tried again, didn't they? This time, he ate what used to be one of my legs, my leg, which somehow was now a cabbage. This was my curse. Cabbage!
Mean ended up as, what can I say, like a little blue lozenge, wriggling around on the floorboards.
And then the wizard showed up. He lifted my decade-old curse, but the rot within my soul was bone deep by then. With his back turned to him, Impossible whipped out one of those cowboy lassos, tied the wizard up tight, dragged him off like cattle, kicking and spitting curses. Now, I won't lie, I was glad to see that wizard taught a lesson, but holding him captive on that ranch for that long, it was too much, yeah, too much even for me. Me, someone who'd been at the dirty end of one of his rancid schemes.
No one's ever happy in misery land. Where did all the people go? Somewhere you may never know.
And finally, this is an account by Miss Magic.
When they caught the wizard, there was a big party. Well, a far bigger party than when the fourth wave arrived. A stage, candy floss, bouncy castle, the works. Happy pulled me aside and said there was an important meeting that night and that I should attend. It was at Mr. Impossible's place, which he called a ranch. When I got there, we were led into a big, dark room. There was a long table covered in documents, maps, all sorts. I later found out that they call this the War Room. It was all polished wood and leather-bound seriousness. At the head of the table stood Impossible. Next to him was Happy, of course. Also there, Mr. Snow, Daydream, Tickle, and Miss Sunshine. We were the magical Mr. Men, apparently. Honestly, I don't know why I was there. After such a fun day, it felt like my hot air balloon had popped and I'd crashed back to Earth. With a thud.
It's customary to say at the start of these meetings that whatever is discussed here stays here. It does not leave this room. That said, I am very pleased, delighted, in fact, to welcome our two newest members to this task force, dedicated to the safety of all Mr. Men.
It made sense, I suppose. Almost sounded like a good idea. But what was the problem? Why do we need this team? Well, he called it a briefing, but even as I sat there listening, I didn't understand why I was included. Well, I can do a bit of magic here and there, but But I always thought I was, well, normal.
About 5 months ago, Miss Sunshine here discovered a new land. It's far to the south, and you can see it here on your maps. This land was called Misery Land. It was occupied by only humans. It's possible it was waiting for its patriarch, or matriarch. Likely someone called Miss Misery, perhaps fifth wave. But more likely it was where Mr. Miserable from the first wave truly belonged. Miss Sunshine's attempt to reimagine Miseryland into Laughterland resulted in the disappearance of the entire region. In short, gentlemen, she went and undid the whole goddamn land.
Miss Sunshine scanned the room for acknowledgement. Her eyes met mine and my face started to melt, like opening an oven. My eyebrows dripped first, then my cheeks weakened. I stayed silent, afraid my jaw would give way.
It was accidental, really. I just wanted to make them all happy. I didn't want to undo anything, anyone, or, you know.
I saw a happy mouth, well done, to Sunshine. I don't know if he thought she'd saved him somehow, saved us from Mr. Miserable, or if he was just impressed by her power. Tickle looked straight at me and I swallowed nervously. Could he read people's minds? When Mr. Snow, he just nodded along, smiling, as if hundreds of people disappearing was perfectly normal. Did they die? Well, there must have been children.
Mr. Impossible understood. He rose and began a slow, deliberate circuit of the room. A performance meant to intimidate, perfectly timed as if waiting for me to melt or flee to the nearest fridge.
But then Daydream took my hand. He knew it was wrong. He was my friend in all this.
Miss Magic sank into her chair as Impossible gently rested his hands on her shoulders. He inhaled deeply, taking in her perfume. She closed her eyes.
Now, we don't expect retaliatory action from the humans. However, given the escalation we've seen from the wizards, this won't go unnoticed.
Do we actually need a Misery Land, though?
Miss Sunshine giggled. Actually giggled.
I suppose I put them out their misery.
The whole room laughed. Daydream squeezed my hand again, like he was telling me, laugh along. Don't let them see you don't agree.
Today, as you know, we finally captured one of these wizards. He's being held at my ranch. And soon, I look forward to bringing you fresh intelligence, which I will be extracting myself. But we all know the already disturbing truth. During that moment, Miseryland became Laughterland. A certain someone did things he shouldn't have been able to do. It was a familiar feeling. We all felt it. That wave of laughter hit is like a 5-second tsunami. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The greatest threat to any nation comes from within. Humans and wizards may attack us, but it will be other Mr. Men who destroy us. And I'll put my money on this. It all starts with him, Mr. Funny.
In Episode 6 of Little White Books, in order of appearance, were Ellen Forrest as Miss Neat, Nicola Proctor as Bossy, Chris Hirst-Bartlett as Tickle and Mr. Lazy. Pete Hazell was Mr. Greedy. Autumn Rose played Miss Wise. Rob Jones was Mr. Silly. Pete McGiffen as Mr. Snooty. Lara C played Miss Fun. Jordan Wistuba as Grumpy and Mr. Mischief. Fee Marchon was Miss Magic. Flute the Voice played Mr. Snow, and Dan C, aka Mr. Trexter, played Mr. Impossible. There was additional sound bites from Darren O and Jamie A and Simon Jackson, and all other characters played themselves.
This production is unofficial and not connected to, approved by, or licensed by the rights holders of the Mr. Men and Little Miss characters. Mr. Men and Little Miss are trademarks of Thowip, a Sanrio company. All rights to the original characters and stories belong to them. You'll also hear versions of the theme song, All Friends Together, throughout the series. The original was written by Dave Cook, originally created by Roger Hargreaves. The books are published in the UK by Farshaw, an imprint of HarperCollins, and in France by Hachette Jeunesse.
All characters featured in this programme are entirely fictional. No Mr. Men, worms, humans, or other beings, real or imagined, were harmed in the making of this production.
That's a real shame.